Okay, I'm finally ready. So the first thing that we want to start off doing is writing the words value scale at the top of our notebook. Okay, if you want to, you can get super craftsy and just trace over those same letters, making them thicker, just kind of making sure your pen is working really well and the ink is flowing. Have a little fun making your letters interesting. The next thing that we're going to do is draw a series of circles throughout the page. So one thing that I like to do when I'm holding a ballpoint pen is not to hold it all the way at the tip. I want to be able to see what I'm doing, so I kind of hold it a little bit like a paintbrush where my hand is farther back on the handle. And just like before, I will use just 2 of these lines on the lined paper and start really lightly, barely touching the paper, drawing a circle. I'll do this several times throughout the paper, making several different circles. So I really like groups of 4. You know, this is a row of 4. And let's see if we can make 3 rows of 4. Here's my second row of 4. This is my third row of 4. Right, just like multiplication, you can count by 4s 3 times. 4, 8, 12. Or you can count by 3s 4 times. 3, 6, 9, 12. Right, you're counting by groups. It's like skip counting. Super fun. All right, so with a value scale, you really want to have, since we're only using one color, you want to have a bar at the top. This will be where we draw our gradient, and I'm going to split this bar into 5 boxes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This side will be the darkest side, and this side will be my lightest side. So this will be the most white. And I want to have it go from the darkest shade of blue, or the thickest amount of ink on one side, to an empty box all the way over here. So the first thing I'll do is just go ahead and fill in that entire box with blue ink. You may have to layer it or go draw vertical lines and then draw horizontal lines. Layer, 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 keep going until it's solid. That is our darkest shade of blue ink. That's as dark as this will get, because that's the most concentration of this color. Now, to lighten this or give the illusion that it's lighter using the same pen, you'll just draw the lines farther apart. I'm actually just touching the paper and drawing a line, picking up my pen, drawing another line inside this box over and again. Now I'll draw, those are my vertical lines, here are my horizontal lines. Okay, this is probably the darkest, the next darkest shade that we can make without filling the entire box with ink. Because we left those little tiny white spaces, it creates the illusion that this is a step down lighter in color. So again, keep those spaces farther apart. Maybe only 1 layer this time of each. And then for this one, we'll just make those lines even farther apart. And then white. You could even draw 2 lines, like a grid. That's nice. You can see how it goes from the darkest shade of blue all the way to our lightest shade, and then we can even call this white over here and make it a 6. All right, so the first thing to make your circle, which is our flat 2D shape we have right here, turn into a sphere, which is a 3-dimensional shape, is to have light and shadow. So I'm going to decide that this side of this circle will have the most light, okay? So I drew a smaller circle on here, almost like an olive, right? So I drew a smaller circle on here, so I remember that needs to be the white space, or it only needs a couple of lines. That means on the other side of my circle, specifically the very back end, it'll be that darkest shade. Both of these two shades right here, that's where these will go. Now I like to do this in kind of like a crescent moon. So it's almost like, right, a thumbnail that goes right here, and just fill in that whole space. I like to make mine, instead of doing this cross hatching up here, I like to make mine into like squiggles or circles or loop-de-loops, right? So I like to do my loop-de-loops. So as I work on this loop-de-loop right here, kind of filling in this space to an in-between between these two colors, then the next thing I'll do is fill in this space here with these two tints or shades, okay? So keeping in mind that I left a lot of white space in the beginning, and then kind of drawing a curve, because this is a ball, so you don't want to draw completely flat lines everywhere on it. You want to have curves. So I will draw almost a C curve right here. Now this kind of looks silly because there are three distinct shades: the darkest, a medium shade of blue, and then pure white. So I kind of do want to add just a couple of lines inside of here. Maybe I'll just bring in a couple lines from the side, and then maybe a couple of curved lines like that. That looks nice. Now, if it's still really distinct between your darkest shade and the next shade down, the next step down, where you can see a specific line, then you do not have a gradient. This is our value scale, right? And a gradient would be drawing the same exact thing again without drawing these boxed lines, right? I'll write gradient right here so you can look it up online if you would like to learn more about gradients, okay? So with our gradient, again, I want to start with my darkest and most condensed shade, dark blue, right? Back and forth, back and forth. Remember, you don't have to push into the paper. You don't have to stab your pen into the paper to make this dark color. I'm still using a light artist's hand. I'm not using my angry child hand. Your angry child hand is super heavy, and that one is just to hold the paper down, okay? So while you're doing this, once you get to this point, then you start kind of lightening up, okay? You still want to match the same shade, but you don't want there to be a distinct line. Maybe you kind of have a nice gradual step right there. More lines in between, just like below. Lines across again. And then this is too distinct, so we'll just add a couple extra lines just to blend out that part right there. This one, oops. This one, same idea. So that we can't quite see those steps down. Okay, there's our gradient. That looks good. Good enough, okay? So same thing over here with our spheres. We want it to be smooth. We want to have a nice smooth gradient. Sometimes that means you do still need to stick to your value scale and have those distinctive tints and shades, but if they're too distinct, it might look a little silly, and that's okay in the beginning, right? It's okay in the beginning because we're just learning. So here's an example of if I just used pure white, a medium gray, and then my darkest blue, what that would look like. Now this time I'm going to make the light source coming from the bottom. So that means that the darkest point would be all the way back here, right? It's almost like an arrow. This is the lightest, and on the very opposite side it's the darkest. So if I have three distinct steps, Draw my Crescent Moon again, super dark. And then I would have this curved lines around like that. So these are 3 distinct shades. It still looks good. I mean, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's fine. But I personally think this one looks better because it has that smoothness between each shade, right? You can go back and do this one a little bit different. So here's what I'm going to challenge you to do. I would like for you to continue moving the light source around and trying different techniques. So instead of just drawing a couple of sun rays coming out like this, and then drawing a couple of curved lines, and then making those more and more condensed, and just like me making those squigglies, right? Squiggly. Right, that looks fine. Try something else. So here's an example. You could try, how about having the light source in the middle and not picking up your pen off of the paper? So making that like nice swoopy circle and having it be super dark on the outside and then getting lighter. So maybe I'm just not pushing down as hard and it gets lighter and lighter and lighter. You can also try doing little curved lines, right? Little C curves around and around and around, almost like you're building out a flower or flower petals. And then just layering more and more flower petals, those little C shapes, around and around and around. You could try just drawing straight lines. That's kind of fun. Looks like laser beams, lightsabers. Oh my gosh, I've been cooped up in my house too long, you guys. And then going around and around, straight line, 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 straight line. Layer, 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 layer. Keep going, keep going. Get wild. Try not to draw anything other than this one straight line. You could actually try cross-hatching. Drawing nice straight lines. And then it's almost like a bunch of hashtags, right? The number symbol over and over and over again. Straight lines, both vertical and horizontal, separating your lines more and more and more, layering those little hashtags all over the place. What should we do here? Let's do the same thing again. Now, the reason I think it's important to do 12 spheres is because doing anything 10 to 12 times with art, it's all about practice. It's about quantity, right? So even if that first sphere that you drew doesn't turn out great, and the second one doesn't turn out great, and the third one or the fourth one or whatever, as you keep going, you're building up this nice stamina, and you're recognizing what's wrong with this sphere, and then you're fixing it later on. So this is my 8th sphere just sitting here, and given I did these yesterday, right? So I think the more you practice and the more you understand that just layering the ink makes it darker, and keeping the ink farther apart and leaving that white space gives the illusion of a lighter color, even though you're only using one material, right? One medium, this blue ink pen, then you can kind of gradually get better, okay? So for these 4, I'm actually going to use watercolor now. I am going to need to put that sheet of cardboard right here to protect the rest of my paper inside of my journal. So I'll go grab that. And I also, before I start layering this blue paint, which kind of makes it look like this, which if you were in my, I think 3rd grade class last year, we read this book called Renato and the Lion, about these Italians who are protecting beautiful giant sculptures during World War II by building up little brick walls all the way around the sculptures. And there was a sculpture of a lion, and Renato loved this lion, right? And in the book, she did not use a monochromatic palette, but we decided that we would draw that lion, right? First in pencil, so we got it right, racing. Then we traced it in blue ballpoint pen. And then we used a nice gradient of watercolor paint to give the illusion of three-dimensional space. And it was a really beautiful project. If I find a picture of it, I'll drop it in right here. All right, so first I'm going to just leave a couple of things for the imagination. Just maybe I'll just draw that crescent moon with my dark blue color on only a few sides, okay? And I can just let it just kind of get a little crazy with it, right? I mean, my craftsmanship is probably not a level 3. It's not like amazing right now. It's like a medium. It's not great, but it's going good, and I'm enjoying myself. So maybe I'll add a couple more lines, like little squigglies, squiggly. And now I'm gonna get that watercolor going. Let me grab my cardboard, slide it in right here. Remember to get your watercolor brush wet first. Swish, wipe, right? Check it, it's clean. And with watercolor, these are all dry, so you have to add water. So I'll add a couple of drops, okay? And I'm gonna start at the darkest side. Start by drawing on the darkest side first, because if the paint's too dark, right, we don't want to corrupt where our light space should be with too much paint. So we'll just do a little bit of paint. It's kind of nice. Now, while it's still wet, I can pull just a little bit more of that paint just to blend it out, right? So we have that nice smooth gradient right there. Again, starting on your darkest side, right? That crescent moon, the darkest side where you put the most ink, and slowly bringing it in. Continuing that crescent moon, making sure that your highlight on your sphere is still white. Now I'm gonna wipe off this paintbrush, check it, it's clean, and then just use a little bit of water to pull that edge of the paint into the circle. Very nice. I hope you guys are having fun. If you're having fun, give this video a like, or comment below with something else that you thought of, or some new trick that you have, so that other elementary school students can learn from you as well, because that is the beauty. Oh, see, it's not clean. That is the beauty of technology and what we're going through right now, is that we can come together as a community and help each other learn and grow. And you know, I'm learning too, so if you have some tips for these videos, hit me up, right? Comment below, subscribe, share this video with other people. Now I'm gonna write monochromatic, monochromatic, underline that because that is an important word for my journal today. I also want to write what monochromatic means. Monochromatic means something that contains or uses only one color. Now, even though we used a blue ballpoint pen and we used the blue watercolor paint, we're still only using one color. It's still blue. So this still counts as being a monochromatic drawing or a monochromatic illustration. I mean, I could take this paintbrush and the watercolor paint and just go back over these other 8 spheres and kind of give them that nice little glow that the watercolor gave it. What I will do right now is just kind of keep going with this sphere idea. Now, you saw on my previous page that I made this nice gradient using just crayon. So if you don't have a blue pen, or if you don't have watercolor paint, or for some reason your blue paint just doesn't look very vibrant, you can use crayon just as well, right? You can also use a highlighter. You can use a blue highlighter, you can use blue marker, you could use blue Sharpies. You could do this entire project a second time using red or any other color. I would love to see that. If you can make a value scale, just like we did here, but instead of using a blue ballpoint pen, using the color red, oh, I would love to see that. Please send that to me. So real quick, I'll just draw a couple of spheres. We'll just do 4 more. Now we have 4 groups, 1, 2, 3, 4, of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So how many do we have? 4, 8, 12, 16. 4 times 4 is 16. It's pretty easy to me. Hope you are skip counting, practicing your skip counting at home. You know, you could always do that with jumping jacks or with family, right? It's super fun. I'm gonna do these each with different shades of blue so you can kind of see the difference. Between them. Well, that was cool. That turned out well. Now, this is probably the darkest blue. According to Crayola, the color is Bluetiful. These 2 spheres in the center, not very sphery. This one's called blue-green. Shh, don't tell. It's a hybrid. This one is cerulean, which is my favorite. I love this color as a kid. But you can actually layer, right, with your crayon, all different shades of blue, as long as they don't all have the same blue name, to kind of give it a more dynamic, interesting look and feel. I knew this lady when I was growing up she was the secretary of my elementary school, and she loved to color, and she would draw these like fascinating grapes that looked really 3-dimensional. Miss Spencer, if you're watching, I remember you layered all those different colors of purples and reds with color pencil. It was so awesome to watch because once you figure out how to make a sphere, then you can draw so many interesting things. So like we could do that later if you want. Go ahead and comment below if you want us to do a grape tutorial where you draw a still life with grapes or fruits and make them look realistic using crayons, or we could try oil pastels or watercolor. Anything that you have at home, I think that would be pretty fun, don't you think? Ooh, that's pretty. Maybe I won't add any of that dark blue to this one. I'll just have this one be my lightest one. Maybe I will. I don't know what I want. It's practice, right? You just get to practice. It's all for fun. Yeah, maybe it needs just a nice line on the outside, maybe just a little bit. That's kind of cool. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to make a value scale with watercolor paint and crayon. So starting with my darkest shade, which is the Bluetiful, I noticed it's that dark color that I used on the dark end, right? Keep it solid and then kind of lighten it up so I'm barely touching the paper. Now I'll layer it with the cerulean, starting all the way at the edge, right? And just layer. Add that one color right over top of the other color. And then again, start to lighten it up. And then taking that blue-green, starting about halfway, maybe you could go all the way to the edge, right? And then just letting go. It's barely like tickling the paper, like as if it was a feather, right? Cerulean, here we go. You can always layer lots of times, right? Lots of times. So as you keep going and as you practice, now remember, I'm much older than you, so I have done this many, many more times than you have. So don't get frustrated if yours doesn't look like mine right away, right? This is years of practicing doing the same skill, the same technique over and over again, and mine are still not perfect. There are still artists who are out there who are significantly better than me because they practice so much more often than I do. This is a great time to practice. All right, let's do our watercolor. So we can start with blue, and just remembering what we did with our blue ink pen, how it was the thickest, the highest concentration of paint on one end, and then, or ink, and then it goes all the way to the other side and it's white. And there's barely anything at all in these other two boxes. So just like how we started this way, I could do it the other way, right? I could do it that way, but I don't want to be confusing today. So we'll start with that thick paint. I'm just using 2 of these lines, practicing. Remember, this is not the right kind of paper for watercolor, so anything that you're doing, you want to let it have some time to rest so that it has some time to dry. See how shiny that is? You want it to have some time to dry before we add another layer because it's water. Ooh, this paintbrush is doing so well. I haven't even touched that palette or water yet. Let's see if I can go all the way to the edge. Well, there's hardly anything there. That's kind of nice. Get my paintbrush a little bit wet. This time I'm going to touch the paint to the back of my hand, and then just add a little bit more water to the paint on my hand. Just a little bit. You see that? That way I can just add a little bit of water and blend in these colors down here. Right? I don't want that, see this dark concentration of blue? I don't want to add that because I know I need to have less paint, right, down here. So I can add a little bit of water on the back of my hand and that'll make it just good enough. Now I can take this concentration of blue and add it all the way over here to my darkest area. There it is. Well, again, I hope you liked this video. I hope that you are all doing well. I miss my art students terribly. And tomorrow, I'm going to post a video on how to make an origami bookmark. So here's the materials that you would need for that. Let's see. Here's some examples of origami bookmarks for tomorrow. So we have like the little Pikachu at the top. We have some comic book cutouts that I made. I made one that looks like a monster, some flowers, cut out some super peas, and this one is a little circus tent. All you need tomorrow is some construction paper, or if you have origami paper, that would be even better, scissors, and glue. See you guys tomorrow. Bye.